Hey everyone, and welcome back. Episode 57 of the Paddle Talk podcast, and we are talking some ATV stuff this week. Just a reminder, this episode, just like every episode of the Paddle Talk podcast, brought to you by Racing in the Dirt out of Cleveland, Wisconsin, ready to do everything from full builds to parts and accessories, wheels, tires, you name it, racinginthedirt.com. Contact them today to make your 2025 season one to remember. All right, so joining me this week is West Coast correspondent and resident ATV semi-expert, Caleb Mings, and resident, well, just bad guy, ATV guy, Paul Moore. Welcome, guys. Good to see you both again. And we are talking a little bit, this may be a little bit of a newer topic, but it's not really, because it's kind of one of these things that's always kind of floating around in the background. Let's talk about jockeys. Now, we're not horse racing. This isn't the Santa Anita Stakes or the Kentucky Derby or anything. We're talking ATVs, UTVs, and we can even talk a little full-on, full-size car. So, gentlemen, good to have you in the house. Paul, we'll start with you since you kind of posted something up a couple weeks ago. I found it really refreshing, found it really good that somebody actually said it versus a lot of people thinking about it. So if you don't mind, let's lead in and get the show started.
Hey, appreciate you having me on tonight. I'm always good for that. Everybody's thinking of, but nobody has the balls to say it. So Paul, just jump in there and say it. I've been in this game long enough that, I've earned the respect from those that who I'm going to get it from, and those who I haven't, I'll never have it anyway. So if I hurt their feelings, then, so be it. Jockeys, that. That's a pretty big topic, pretty hot topic. Anybody serious as far as chasing records, pretty much has somebody riding their stuff. As far as people with world records, PSDA records that rode their own personal stuff, Dan Nineheis, Randy Williamson, the plumbers on their motorcycle stuff. But beyond that, most bike owners are running jockeys and using jockeys anymore.
Yeah. And let's make clear too, just so, and I think we're all three of us at least on the same page here. We're not saying you shouldn't be using a jockey. I mean, I get it, man. Let's face it, I will be fully transparent. I am 285 pounds. It's just the laws of physics that if I put somebody 105 pounds on my bike, on my car, whatever. Anyway, if I put somebody much lighter than me in there, it's just a fact of physics that it should go faster with the identical tune-up. I mean, I think we're all three in agreement on that, right? So we're not saying, hey, man, you shouldn't be using it. We're just going in a little bit different direction here.
Yeah, and it doesn't take away from, a bike owner because they don't ride their own stuff. A lot of people are like, oh, that's, if you're not riding your own bike, you're not shit. And that's not true at all. I've ridden my own stuff, Steph rode our stuff. And it doesn't take anything away from anybody because they don't ride their own stuff. I mean, the same amount of work goes into it. It's just somebody else putting it down through the track.
Absolutely. No, I hear you. So, Caleb Mings, you're not a big guy. Have you ever thought about trying to find, I mean, let's say somebody the peewee size to throw on your bike?
Well, that's something that I've never really been in the record pursuit per se with that, and probably never will be. Just the funds, it takes a lot of money to go fast, and I'm never going to be that guy. But I kind of agree with Paul on a lot of his points on this. Is that we've really gotten to this point with record pursuits that people that really want those numbers, they're putting as light a weight of a jockey on their bike as possible. I mean, it used to be that you found a 140-pound guy, like that was considered jockey weight. And, granted, that's still a pretty, skinny dude, even in today's standards. But we're talking, if you're over 100 pounds now, you might not have a ride next year, no matter how good of a rider you are, because we're counting ounces, not pounds, in the pursuit of records. And, this probably goes into a lot deeper of a topic as far as like how much weight can we shed off. But I think where Paul's coming at this is like, look, you can have a lightweight rider. That's totally fine. And like you said, no shade thrown to anybody that doesn't ride their own stuff. There's plenty of people out there that are just builders and they enjoy tinkering on the machines and finding somebody that can really ride it and pursue those record numbers. The issue comes into when are we prioritizing a rider's weight over ability? Because we're starting to see, these bikes are getting so fast that a lot of times people kind of forget about some of the safety aspects and immediately are saying, hey, look, I just want to put as light a weight a rider on this bike as possible because I want those numbers without thinking, are they ready for this bike? I mean, even for myself, I never was jockey weight. I would love to go on some fast bikes. Paul, I don't know if I would be very comfortable on moose knuckle right now.
Right.
It would take me a little bit to get used to something like that. And we're having so many riders out there that I guarantee there's a little 90-pound, for all intents and purposes, kid out there that would love to go on one of your bikes. But the reality is that a lot of those riders are not ready for that caliber of a bike. And
Right. Yeah. I mean, in our sport, we go from, it's 16, at 15, you have to run like a 4.0, to where now all of a sudden you're 16 and you can go as fast as you want,
Exactly.
so we're in a sport where, kids are, basically being trained and, kind of groomed, so to speak, to, ride these bikes. And on their 16th birthday, they're running 3.0s. So it's tough. And then you get into the whole aspect of, a lot of our, veteran riders have been doing this a long time, but we're seeing them kind of take the back seat to some of the newer generation of riders, that might only be 95, 100 pounds. And we see owners foregoing, ability for the weight. And I think we've seen that, a lot, here recently. And I think that's a direction that I think concerns me in the sport. The pay to ride, thing. It's a touchy subject. Do I think these jockeys, do I think these riders deserve compensation? Sure. They take time off. They take time off their work. They work hard. They lose weight. They train their body for it. They're in all, sense a professional athlete. The ones at the highest level. So if you have a rider that feels like they want to be compensated, and if it works for your team, then I'm all about it. Some teams, just, hey, you riding the bike is, giving me the opportunity to ride the bike is enough for me. But for some riders, it's a paycheck. It's a way that they make ends meet. So, as far as pay to ride, I don't have a problem with that. But I think what that brings in is, the possibility that you hire somebody because they're light, versus because they're a good rider.
Mm-hmm. No, and Paul, you made a really good point earlier too about, at least within PSDA and a lot of other organizations, we've got that 4.0 limit for kids. I would still argue that even for a lot of riders, that 4.0 limit for a kid I think they can hit that at age 13, I believe, 12 or 13. I would still argue that that's maybe a little quick for somebody that young, but you're talking as soon as you turn 16, that's when you can go as quick as you want. And the jump from a 4.0 bike to a 360 bike, a 340 bike, a 3.0 bike, that's huge. And, maybe up until that point, based upon, the family that rider comes from, the opportunities they've had, maybe they've had a nice progression, right? That's where we want to see. We want to see kids start out on these bikes, start in a little stock, quad that they buy at the dealership, and slowly progress as their skill increases. But you're talking going straight from that 4.0 bike to a 320 bike immediately the next day with no progression in between. And I think personally that, organizations, especially in tracks, they should kind of adopt some sort of licensing the way that NHRA does. You have your chassis certifications and class certifications based upon how quick you can go. It's all about your ability to control the vehicle. And this, I think, should apply to full-size cars, to UTVs. This isn't strictly just a bike thing. There's a huge difference in those ET ranges, and I think we need to come up with some ways that we have some common sense for how quick somebody should be going until they should progress to that next step. I don't know. What do you think about that, Paul?
No, I like that idea, and I've talked to some people about that as well. That and there's nothing wrong with just asking somebody to prove that they can, as an organization, prove that they can handle the equipment, and it's no different than if you owned a construction company, or whatever. You wouldn't put them in the biggest, most expensive piece of equipment that you have on their first day.
Sure.
Prove to me that you can handle the smaller equipment. You can, you could do the things, you can react, and be safe, and then work your way up to to the big leagues. And it doesn't have to be, long term. It doesn't have to say, oh, you need a 5 year, vetting process, to get a license. But, I think that, I really feel like we are seeing more and more people ride things, that they're just not ready for. And it's not, it's great when things go perfect. It's great when things go perfect. It's when things become unsettled that I
Mhm.
think, that experience, and it's not just, it's knowing the bike. It's every bike handle's different. You can be a veteran racer, but you jump on one bike, to the next bike to the next, and they all behave differently. And I saw that a lot with Steph when she would ride a bike, even just our stuff. She would have to remind herself which bike she was on, because
Mhm.
each bike has its own personality. And I really like to see, these veteran, riders out there take their time, get used to a bike. And that's when I think you're really going to see, things go fast, is once somebody gets on a bike, they get comfortable on it, they can handle it, they can provide feedback to the tuner. I still think that is the best combination there is. Somebody that can, sticks with their team, is not a hired gun that just flies in, for the weekend. But it's somebody that, works with their builder, works with their tuner, can provide feedback. And if they want to get paid for it, that's fine. That's great, because that information is invaluable, to a tuner and to a builder. But I think we really need to take a look at, like, who's riding the bikes that are out there.
Yeah, and I'm all for that. I mean, having somebody that has been on bikes of that caliber be the person to test it. I've got no problem with jockeys paying to ride, owners paying jockeys. I've got no issues with that. It just comes down to the skill level thing. And even I've seen some people come from different disciplines. They might ride, motocross, or even if they come from the pavement drag racing world. It's really different when you get into the dirt, and like you said, the bikes react different. I'm sure that Steph has even said, like, that maybe a slower bike was a little bit wilder than some of the fast bikes. That happens. Chassis differences, torque curves, like whatever type of engine you've got in it, bikes are going to behave differently, and we got to do something to just to keep the riders safe. I mean, that's what it boils down to. Isaac, I mean, you're saying if you put somebody quick, a lot lighter in your car and stuff, like what do you kind of think about it? Like, what do you think should be the criteria for when somebody's ready for a vehicle of a certain caliber?
So when going back a little bit, now this will date me a little, but when we were running a lot of NSDA in your neck of the woods, Caleb and stuff, for top eliminator, top alcohol, top fuel, we had a licensing, and I mean, basic things like, can you stage the car? believe it or not, there were some guys that it took them a entire weekend to be able to stage the car correctly. You know, I can remember the Mamer boys wanted to license in Jeff's Sidewinder, and the one almost wrapped the thing around the Christmas tree literally the first time he tried to 60-foot the car. I mean, but his brother, on the other hand, could just muscle that thing around. It's just different guys, different cars, you know. I mean, to you guys' point too, you know, I have seen the same bike get piloted by different people over the weekend. The one I'm thinking of, I watched Misty Barton run it, and she just muscled that thing around and basically, you know, made it do what she wanted to do. Another person jumped on the bike, made a hit, and I literally thought they were going to wad the thing up at the end of the track because they did not have control over it from the time they let the clutch out. And I was like, oh my word, that is, but same bike, same track, same circumstance, just different rider and kind of being familiar with the bike like you guys talk about and stuff like that. So I think the idea is fantastic of a, I don't know if licensing is the right word, but um just proving that you can, and this is where, you know, we all are the same here, where you got to kind of put your ego in the back, in your back pocket a little bit and say, listen, I need to kind of prove myself a little bit here. And there are guys, I can hear it already. There are guys that are going to be talking back to this video saying, I've rode for the last 20 years. I've never had a problem. I shouldn't have to do it and everything else. Yeah, but you know what? The one time you do, and you're going to regret it. That would be my pushback right there. I don't care if you've been riding for 20 years or 20 months. It can happen to anybody in the wrong circumstance.
Sure.
Right. And, you know, and it's a mindset thing. You know, owners need to change their mindset as well, you know, and know that, you know, instead of running the numbers, you know, the priority is keeping everybody safe, keeping the bike, you know, planted and on the ground, keeping, you know, everybody in the stands safe, the person in the lane next to you safe. You know, and once a rider, you know, spends enough time on a bike. You know, you mentioned Misty. Misty can ride the wheels off of just about anything because she's ridden just about every type of bike, you know, there is. But but Misty also, you know, when I saw her ride Eric's, you know, lay down bike, you know, it's different, and she knows when something doesn't feel right,
Yep.
and that's you know, her rider intuition. You know, and watching her kind of ease into riding Eric's 4-cylinder laydown, you know, was nice to watch because she really took her time. She didn't, you know, and I even told her, I said, don't ever feel bad about aborting a pass. You know,
Yeah.
if something doesn't feel right, like, I don't care what anybody says to you, and I would tell Steph the same thing. You know, I said, it doesn't matter. You know, if something doesn't feel right, don't try to be, you know, to save the pass. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
You know, and I've seen Misty, you know, over the years, when something doesn't feel right, she doesn't force the bike down the track. It's when you try to force the bike down the track and get it to do something that it's not going to do, that's when things get really sketchy. And I think that goes back to, you know, just having that rider intuition, having that experience, you know, to know that, hey, you know, it's okay. I can let off this pass, and I'll come back around and do it again, and nobody's gonna be hurt, you know.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought on Misty because, like, that's a perfect example of a rider that, like you said, all intents and purposes, Misty can ride any bike out there and do a
Yep.
good job with it. And, you know, she's been through that whole progression, gone on quicker and quicker bikes, but she's developed those skills. And it was good that she even knew, like, hey, I feel a little bit uncomfortable on this new bike. It was, you know, it's a lay down bike. It's a different type of power plant. You know, it's a little bit quicker than, you know, some of the quickest bikes she's been on. And, you know, she has enough, you know, awareness to understand that. And
Right.
everybody around her was, you know, kind of backing her on, you know, hey, you make the decision on this because we trust your intuition. The problem is, you know, we're talking about the rider that is going to be thrown on a bike like Eric's and doesn't have that intuition. Somebody coming
Right.
from a different discipline, from that
Trying to prove
16-year-old,
himself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
16-year-old on the 4.0 bike all of a sudden is on a 3-teen bike, and they're like, oh, I can ride this sucker. And they're going to go and try to make a full pass, staying it way too long when it's getting out of shape, because you're right. It's an ego thing. And
Right.
maybe even if it isn't an ego thing, it's just an experience thing. They may not
Right.
know, hey, the bike's getting out of shape now. I need to let out now, because if I don't, the bike is going to be at the guardrail or in the cones quicker than I think it will. They just
Right.
don't have experience with it.
Yeah. I can't help but think of back to uh, asphalt team, the scrappers team, the one young lady for them that was running the pro stock bike and absolutely destroyed that thing at Pomona the one year because she just rode that thing way out further than it ever should have been. And just experience, I mean, she had a lot of passes on a pro stock bike at that point in time, but she's not a Andrew Hines or Ellie Tonglet or any of these other Gage Herrera, any of these other guys that, are pretty much said, hey, yeah, she stayed in that thing way too long for a pass that just never had it going anyway, and I think that's where, like you said, the experience, just being on, having a feel, and not being afraid, to Paul's point too, not being afraid to say, you know what, this pass is not going to be what I wanted. Save the equipment. There is nobody needs a hero at this point,
Right.
and yet we've all, I mean, I think between the three of us, we've probably seen plenty of passes where you're like, my word, I don't understand why we just did that, because that didn't prove anything to anybody other than you almost wadded that thing up on the guardrail.
Dude, and we kind of joke about a lot, but like there's a lot of Puerto Rican racers and stuff from the island that we see the same thing happen. And right, like they're a lot of those racers are not necessarily in the same boat, that they're in the driver's seat because they're the lightest person out there. It's just because they're the racer, and it's the same thing. You got to know when to get out of it, and I think a lot of it is just an experience thing, and you could be racing for a long time, and it's going to be a very different position when you get into something that is outside of what your norm. If any one of us here on the podcast got on one of Paul's bikes, very different than what we're used to, and like even if it's on one of the slow bikes, quote unquote, right? Like it still is something different, and you have to recognize. I've been racing for my entire life basically. And just because I've got 25 experience on a bike doesn't mean I have 25 experience on that bike or in that dragster or in that Jeep.
Yeah.
You have to go and take it. Each vehicle is a new circumstance, and humble yourself and have the people around you make sure that your head is in check, because it's their stuff too. They don't want to see you get wadded up. They don't want to see you get hurt.
Right.
Absolutely. No, it's spot on. So, no, I really appreciate the fact. Obviously, Paul, you're always willing to speak out and say something. Yeah, I hope we're going in the direction that you had in mind and not veered off into some outfield here to where you're like, that's not really where I had in mind going, but whatever. So.
No. I appreciate the platform. The whole world knows what happened, and to us, and if anything good has come out of it, it's the fact that I can really appreciate, our jockeys and our riders out there that have their head on straight, that can, react and handle things, because things happen quick and in a hurry, and it definitely has brought to light, the safety aspect of the sport, and I know that's going to be a hot topic here in a few episodes. I know rules and changes like that are on the horizon, and there's no shame in saying that I've been a huge advocate for those changes. And I think the sport is going in a direction that is good as far as safety goes, and as far as getting riders that are competent. Because these discussions didn't happen a year or two ago. And just having the fact that these discussions are taking place now means that there's progress, and there's always going to be that one person that is going to watch this video and say Paul and the crew are full of shit. But if you've walked the mile that I've walked, your perspective on things would be a lot different. It's easy to say, accidents happen. It's easy to say, shit happens. You know what happened. You know what you do when you get behind them handlebars. Yeah, that's real easy to say. And there's some truth to it. But when you're walking around the track, and you're looking at stuff and you're like, you just have you see things through a different lens, after you see, what I saw in the things that I've seen. So, I hope I don't upset anybody. That's never my goal, but if I do, it's just because I love them,
I would agree.
Feeling.
I know, Paul, we're somewhat in the same boat. Caleb, you're going to be there as a dad now too, with a kid that has grown up around the racetrack, is getting old enough now that he's starting to ride stuff that's faster than I've ever been, and that sort of thing too. That's also a different lens I look through, and I can offer advice of, hey man, that may be not the best thing, to do. And I would really encourage, if there's guys out there watching, especially younger guys, I mean, we didn't get to this point because, we just did dumb stuff all the time. We've seen a thing or two, so to speak, and
right.
sometimes us guys that have been around a little bit have something to say, not because we're trying to put you down or anything else. If anything, it's because, hey man, do it the right way and do it the safe way, because we've seen too many of the other side, and we don't want to see that again. We would
Right.
much rather see you be safe and be, you know, be good out there. And that's, where we're all coming from. So Caleb,
Right.
what do you got for us?
Uh, just going on, I totally agree with you. Yeah, I'm going to be in that spot, sooner rather than later. And I also think that this is discussions that a lot of times people gatekeep. They're saying, oh, you don't have a vehicle of this caliber, you haven't ridden this, you haven't been around the sport or around this rider, you don't know. I think that there's plenty of people that have been around enough to be able to have input on this, even if they're not in that position. Like I said, I'm not jockey weight, but and I have not been on a 320 bike, but I don't think that should be the requirement to have a say in this. I'm definitely no expert in it, but I think that we need to have logical discussions about this, and I think it's great that Paul is kind of bringing it up. And you're right, these discussions weren't happening, and they need to continue. And eventually, there's going to be changes that have to be made to be able to protect the safety of everybody involved in the sport and to make sure that the sport's around.
That's right. And there's times we got to remember we live in for lack of a better word, a glass house. And the public and people are always looking in, whether it's the insurance company, whether it's outside people, are already looking at what we do. And, you know, we don't need any more bad things to happen, so to speak. So, all right, Paul, we'll give you the last word. What do you got, buddy?
Hey, if you're a bike owner out there, you think you could do it better, hop on that son of a bitch, take it down the track, and then you'll get to live in your rider's shoes for just a split second of time. So, be patient with them. Know that they're an investment, you know. Invest the time in them, invest the effort into your riders. Stick with them. Don't change your rider because they show up to the track and are 2 pounds heavier than they were last time you saw them. They're an investment. Treat them that way. If that means cutting them a check, paying them for their time, if that's what they need, hey, that's what they need. It's an investment. Okay, because there's nothing more important than that person is than when they're behind the bars of your bike. So and if you don't believe me, take a ride in their shoes just once, because I guarantee you there's very few bike owners out there that have actually ridden their own stuff. So and take your time, be patient with them, and invest in them.
There you go. I couldn't add anything more to it. Paul, great to have you on tonight. Caleb, thanks for being with us. And that, folks, is going to wrap up episode 57 of the Paddle Talk podcast.
Hey folks, it's Billy Teeters here. We hope you enjoyed that segment with Paul Moore, and he was brought to you by racinginthedirt.com. Parts, equipment, and apparel for all your off-road competition needs. Racing in the Dirt, they have just one mission, and that is to help their customers compete at their very best. With over 40 years of motorsports competition experience, they know what it takes to maintain the competitive edge, and they are equipped to keep you there. On-site welding and fabrication, incredible selection of parts, experience, and helpful staff. These guys know what they're doing. I ain't gonna lie to you, I'm looking at the website right now. These guys are top notch. You can go online, look at their tires and wheels, all their products, their chassis, whether you're looking for a full build, turnkey, ready to race, or simply a cage in your existing ride, or maybe a chassis that will be the foundation of your newest race vehicle. Racing in the Dirt offers it all. You can contact them about a consultation today at 920-693-2000. That's 920-693-2000. And now, here is Esteban Juarez of Dome Valley Raceway.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Paddle Talk podcast. We're here to talk about the Dome Valley Raceway Winter Shootout coming up this weekend. We've got Esteban Juarez and Mini Mooch joining us for this episode's segment. Esteban, tell us a little bit about the Winter Shootout coming up this weekend, January 17th through the 19th.
How's it going, guys? Pleasure to be here again with you. Thank you again for having me on. Love watching the show. Every time you guys come out with a new episode, it's always so interesting to see everything that's going on in sand drags around the East Coast, West Coast, just all throughout the country. So this weekend, we have the first of 4 rounds in the 2025 Point Series Championship here at Dome Valley Raceway. Super excited for this first event. We got a lot of new faces coming out to race with us. And one big name that I'd like to shout out would be Chris Minor Racing. They're coming out with both their alcohol cars to race with us for the first time. Super excited for that. Got plenty of cars that are coming back that were very strong in 2024 that are looking to just hop into that first round of the Point Series and go all the rounds in 2025.
Yeah, and speaking of that Point Series, I know you guys are adding a couple classes that weren't part of the 2024 series. So tell me a little bit about which classes are going to be in contention for points here in 2025.
Yeah, so with us being a regular PSDA scheduled track throughout the years, we've wanted to implement more ATV classes. So in the middle of 2024, we decided to add the 395 index for ATVs, which is going to be a class that is going to be added to our Point Series, along with both index classes for the vehicles, which is the 395 and 450. Got a lot of racers that are leaning more towards getting into those classes on our Friday schedule, which are really exciting to have before that gambler that night. So yeah, those are going to be the 3 new classes that we will be adding to our Point Series. All the regular classes that were in the Point Series for 2024 will still be a part of the 2025 Point Series. The way that we've structured it, though, is we need to have enough cars running in multiple events so that that class can qualify for the Point Series. So last year we had a couple of classes like A-Fuel we didn't have run in 2 of the events versus the last event we did. So therefore, they're not going to be a part of the Point Series. So just depending on how it goes throughout the year, unfortunately, with the scene in California, we will be seeing a lot more of the West Coast racers coming to race with us throughout the year in 2025. So I don't see any of these classes getting dropped from the Point Series.
Awesome. That's great to see. I mean, I know out Damian's way, a lot of those index classes are really popular. You know, Damian, I know you guys run a little bit different index times, but what do you think of the 395 and 450 index here for the cars and the 395 for the bikes?
Now, the 395 definitely, it's right there with our normal. It's the 40. Definitely should be a good grouping of cars. It's where a lot of people really tend to hit a wall anymore, where they decide if they're going to spend a lot more money to go faster or if they've decided it's time to ease up on the gas a little. 450 class, it's a common class out here, but we do it a bit differently. It's a 450 and faster staggered pro tree. We do have a large grouping of cars out here that run right in that 460 to 440 range, that if we wanted to, we could just do that simple index at some races. But as long as the local count is high, I don't see any problem with those two classes being big.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right about that wall right there, about that 4.0 index. And Esteban, I know maybe we could talk a little bit about it. I know you aren't going to be running this vehicle at this event, but you've been working on something off season. If you guys have been following Esteban, you know he's had a little project under his wing over the winter. Can you tell us a little bit about what your plans are here for the 25 season, actually behind the wheel and not just in the tower?
Yeah, so it's been in the works for the last year. The program here at Dome Valley Raceway has hit a point that we're very comfortable with. I've actually gone a couple of events, staying away from my crew, watching them manage the track and make sure that they're able to do so, which with the last two events, they've been able to do so, which has given us the full indication that, hey, I can hop back behind the wheel and stay away from the track at little points. So with that being said, we've been building a top alcohol 250-inch wheelbase dragster that we should be running in the top eliminator class. We will be debuting it at our PSDA event in February. 5-day event gives us plenty of time, gives me plenty of time to license the vehicle, get some seat time, make sure that it's looking good for the March event, because we're definitely going to come out swinging in that March event.
Yeah, yeah. And I believe it's a supercharged, it's a small block. You've had a bunch of people help you behind it. You want to shout out anything?
Small block? Wait,
I thought you had a small block.
What are we talking small block?
Oh, no. You got a big block in it?
Oh, it's not a Hemi. It's not a Hemi, but it is a big block. Yes, it's a
okay.
40 big end dart block.
Okay.
Big dart and heads. Whole setup, yeah, supercharged on alcohol. So super excited about it. It is going to be my first time hopping back behind the wheel after 14 years. So super excited, going all the way in on it, and just looking forward to it. But definitely going to make sure that the racetrack is my number one priority. I definitely have a great group of guys that are going to be behind me, supporting me. One big shout out I like to do and give out to is Triple Threat Racing. Triple Threat Racing has been completely supportive with this entire build, helping me hands on, hands off, over the phone, just with everything when it comes to just understanding this new monster that I'm going to be putting myself in. Sandon Street Motorsports has really came in clutch with helping and sponsoring me. They're a local company out of Yuma, Arizona. They've really gotten excited about this entire project and wanted to be a part of it from the moment they heard about it. And they've been completely supportive with a tremendous amount of work with the car. Had to get a couple of things changed up on the motor, which they were more than willing to do. D&M Racing, some of the best D&M builds that are all over the country, just tearing it up at different racetracks everywhere. They did a lot of chassis work for me. They actually went out their way and built a wing and wheelie bar for the first time ever and took on that project, killed it. Super excited to showcase the car and just show everybody this amazing work that they do. Fast Track Construction out of Las Vegas, the Hickey Racing, all these guys have just really been super supportive just to make sure that we can get more racers out here to make the classes more exciting, more packed, and just be able to grow sand drags and dread up.
That's awesome, man. I mean, can't wait to have, more top limiter people. That's something that we see that class kind of grow and shrink, here on the West Coast. And I know it's been running very strong Midwest and East Coast. So sounds like between yourself and a few other people, we're really going to be having a pretty stacked West Coast contingent here for Top Eliminator. Speaking of all your guys and all the work that they do, let's get into what the schedule is here for this event for the Winter Shootout. You want to kick off, Esteban, with what you guys got going on the Friday schedule?
Yeah, so for Friday, we're going to start off with Test and Tune. We open up the track at noon and pretty much just give a lot of the racers an opportunity to go out, get their car just running, see what it's going to do. A lot of times, a lot of racers, many situations, come to Dome and tune it up because they know the track can handle. So the Test and Tune, we give them that opportunity to go out there on Friday, see what they can do. At 2:00, we do stop Test and Tune so that we can go ahead and run Q1 of Top Alcohol, Top Eliminator, and A Fuel. And then we go straight back to Test and Tune for another hour or so. Then we hop into our index classes. And we do allow some of the cars that are still wanting to do Test and Tune to hop in between the classes. Then we will go ahead again and run the Q2 of the big cars at 5. And then once we're done with our index classes, we go into our Friday Gambler for ATVs and vehicles.
Awesome. Yeah. The Gambler classes out there, Dome, always a blast. Great way for people to kind of get some extra passes and win some money there on the Friday program. I know you guys also run that at the end of your Saturday program as well. But before we get down to the end of the program there on Saturday, what do you guys kick off Saturday with?
On Saturday, so we kick off, our day starts with the juniors and peewees hitting the track. Like you just mentioned, I'm building a car. I run a racetrack. It's honestly a crazy toll to handle, but it all started with me being in a junior dragster. I truly fell in love with the sport, being in a car as a kid. And as I continue to host events, I just realized, hey, a lot of these kids are just sitting around until Sunday. That's not enjoyable. They're not getting much run time. They're going to go do their 3 qualifying passes. If they lose first round, then they're done. That's really unfortunate for a kid that's trying to get passionate about something. So we allow the kids to get 4 time trial runs on Saturday morning that don't count for qualifying. They're going to get another 4 on Sunday whenever they go into eliminations. We start off with the kids, then we go into our sports classes, sports 1 and 2, and then we also have sports 1 and 2 for ATVs. We'll run those out, and then we go straight back to our Saturday gambler. And like you said, we have a lot of racers that get excited about that. We have some huge payouts for our gamblers. I've even seen kids before taking home $1,000 get super stoked, which is awesome to see. So yeah, gamblers are definitely very anticipated on Saturday night.
Yeah, and then you also have your final 2 qualifiers for all the heads-up classes, the top alcohol, eliminator, A-fuel, all those guys as well, and that's going to set the ladder for Sunday eliminations.
Correct.
I
Yeah.
think it's great having the kids out there. I know all 3 of us here, started in the junior program. I definitely myself, I would have loved those extra passes. I know, Damian, what was like the junior scene out your way when you were growing up?
It was up and down. I started out a little on the bear track or an old 250. My dad would just have me start it in second gear and just run it the whole way through because I couldn't reach the shifter at that point. But growing up, it grew and grew. It started in the mid 90s, and then I started early 2000s, and it just kept growing for a while. It's had its down years, and right now I think it's in its upswing again. But it was neat seeing all the different stuff, all the different kids racing. We had just as tight a points championship fights as the adults did in our days.
You think having those extra passes on a Saturday would have been, well, I know probably the schedule's a little bit different, but having an extra day of test and tune for you guys, you think you guys would have enjoyed that?
Oh, it would have been wonderful. And that's one thing with the Outlaw series that they do is they'll allow you to have your kids go down and run in test and tune, obviously on passes of their own separate from the adult cars, but they allow them to enter the test and tune and run then as well.
Definitely very cool. Great to see, Midwest, East, and West Coast all contributing towards the future of our sport, really. So, and speaking of that future, like you said, Esteban, they're kicking off the Sunday schedule as well, right?
Yes, they do. They kick off our Sunday schedule. We start right back with the kids, prep the track for them. It's actually, to me, it's hilarious now that we have conversations regarding kid world records. I love it. It's great for the sport, but the concept is just so funny to me because it's just like, that's awesome, but you go out there and you see like the Fauchets. Aubrey is amazing. Big fan. Have been a big fan since the moment first time she ever came to the track. They literally push that little mortar to the limit. They are always working on it like it's a fuel car. And it's just so awesome just to see the commitment that they put behind these junior kids' vehicles. And it's like, I can only imagine what passion she'll have in the future whenever she continues to race in our sport because of that.
Definitely. So we're going to get through kids. They're going to get more test and tune. They'll go through their eliminations. And then we're going to get into the pro side of the category. So you've got Pro 1 and Pro 2 ATV, as well as Pro 1 through, is it 1 and 2 or 1 through 3 for the cars?
1 through 3 for the vehicles and 1
through
2 for the ATVs, so that we can have a little bit bigger of a count for the ATVs when it's a bigger event like this. And then obviously with us being a PSDA track as well, a lot of the bike ATV guys from the West Coast like to obviously wait till February because it is a 5-day race. You can get plenty of passes in then. So that's why we have the one less class, just so that we can make sure that that counts a little higher for them.
Gotcha. So you're going to run through that, and then simultaneously you're going to run, test and tune first rounds, and then the big show with the heads up cars. Their elimination is going to be there, and I know Chris Minor Racing adding to the pot for top alcohol and top eliminator. Tell us a little bit about what's going on there.
Yeah, so it was actually really great to hear. I was actually on a run the other day, and Chris reached out and said, "Hey, does anyone ever put money towards the pot to make it a little bit more exciting?" I said, "Hey, yeah, you know what? They typically do. Obviously, it's a weird time in life right now, so it was a little bit tougher to try to do that for this event, which is totally fine. You know, everyone comes out here. We have 100% payout for our bigger classes anyway, so they always go home with plenty of cash in their hands for winning. But yeah, Chris Miner said, "Hey, you know what? Let's make it a little fun." He actually wanted to donate $500 to Top Alcohol, Pro Mod, and Top Eliminator. But I did explain we don't have Pro Mod and Dome. We only have Top Alcohol. So he said, "All right, let's make it $1,000 for Top Alcohol." I said, "Chris, you're the man. Let's do it." He said, "Let's make it exciting." He said, "You know, I put a lot into my cars. They're great cars, but they're not made to sit in the garage. They're made to race." So he wants to make sure to have plenty of guys come out and enjoy the fun with us and just make it that a little bit more exciting.
That's awesome. And I mean, like you said earlier, California racing, we're down to one track in, Central California. They're not going to be running until later in the year. So here we're in January. We want to run some of those cars, and Chris Myers bringing up both of the blown alcohol Jeep and the dragster. Bobby Cottrell is going to be behind the wheel of the Pro Mod Jeep, and Chris's son Josh is going to be behind the wheel of the dragster again, correct?
Yes, correct. Yep. They're both going to be piloting both of those machines in Top Alcohol.
And that'll be cool. I know it's going to be Josh's second race with that car. They had some issues the first event that they debuted it at what turned out to be the final race at Lake Elsinore. And obviously, I know Chris Miner Racing, Chris really wants to get into the 30s with the Jeep. And I know he's going to be trying for it at Dome Valley. And we were just talking before the episode, Dome is the home to the first alcohol car pass in the 30s. And that's fine. You were saying you were there when that pass was set. Tell us a little bit about like what that was like. And do you think that Bobby behind the wheel of the Pro Mod Jeep can repeat on that?
Yeah, I was most definitely there. It's funny that you said that because the moment you said that, I got goosebumps because all I can remember is the night, and this is kind of getting off of that. All I can remember is the night that Dennis Reich and Hammer Down ran at 2:16, and just the entire place yelled. And that's going to be the exact same energy that it was for whenever the Top Alcohol dragster ran at 2:36. That was just incredible. It was just insane. You know, the whole conversation was, "Oh, is the system right?" But then that entire weekend, they were killing it. So yeah, it was amazing to see, and I definitely do believe that the miners will be running in the 230s this event. My father has been working day and night for the previous months. We knew that the miners were going to be attending the January event even before our November event, and ever since then, my dad just knew what needed to be done to the track. He's moved a lot of the fast dirt from the shutdown back onto the track. He's been watering it consistently to make it heavy and firm for those big cars. We got some new equipment that will be breaking out from the farmers that are generously supportive with us in the sand drag industry. So yeah, they definitely, I believe, will be running in the 230s this weekend, which is so insane to say because I was telling my father about it. He's just like, "What, 230s?" And I'm like, "Yeah, so make sure it's quick." And he said, "Hey, he literally then sent me a picture of him on the tractor on the track." So this was weeks ago. So yeah, they're definitely going to have the best track surface that they can possibly run on. I can't wait to see that Pro Mod just go straight up and down the track with no issues going side to side. That car has so much power in the wheelbase. You know, it really needs a perfect track. And I truly believe that's what they're going to have this weekend. And they'll definitely be running some fast numbers.
Damian, what do you think? A short car, front engine in the 230s? You think it can happen?
I honestly wasn't expecting 40 out of them last year. So I think it's possible. It's just going to take it's going to be the pass. Everything is going to have to go right because no matter how perfect the track is, a short car like that can get out of hand in a second.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and it's crazy to think that we're talking about times like that. I mean, we covered a lot of mud racing events last year, and we're seeing similar caliber cars in 200 foot running 240s, so 230s. I think it's insane to think about that.
Even
190s for the like
open rails,
paddle drag rails and stuff, but for a short wheelbase front engine car, we're talking.
Well, the open rails are limited to 150-inch wheelbase, so
that's true. That's true.
And it's crazy what these screw-on Hemis are putting out for horsepower nowadays.
definitely going to be very exciting. And, I know we're going to have a lot of our staple racers are going to be out there. Nick Schultzman, the Blue Bayou Altered, he's coming out with that whole new combo. He's looking for redemption after some scary situation with the clutch blowing up at the last race. I know Tommy Zavala is going to be out there. He's going to be running his car. I believe he's going to enter in top alcohol, especially that added prize money.
Yes. If anything, he may be doing double duty just as well as Triple Threat Racing Tristan Graham. He'll also be doing double duty.
Yeah, definitely.
Half the battle's survival.
That's true. So it's going to be very exciting for those heads-up classes. Hoping to see a good contingent of the A-Fuel guys. I know Cody Hoffman's been talking about making his second race out there. He debuted behind the wheel of his dad, Steve's Smooth Sucka dragster, out there at the November race. So he's coming back out. And I know we're going to have a lot of West Coast people excited for a January race at Dome. Esteban, any final thoughts on the event? Anything you want people to know as we go into race weekend?
Yeah, and just touching back on what you just said, I'd love to get a huge shout out to Cody because, I know a lot of the talk within Sandrags is top alcohol, pro mod, top eliminator. Cody went out there and I believe he ran a 261 in November. So that's fast. That's up there. And, this was only his first event. I remember him coming up to me. It's so funny, too, because I just found a picture of him in his junior dragster from 2011. And now he's sitting in potentially one of the fastest cars on property, besides obviously our top alcohol. So it's definitely so awesome to see that same progression, of growth in the sport. That's exactly why we have our juniors and peewees racing so much more, because this is another prime example. Cody Hoffman was in a junior dragster, and now he's sitting in an A-Fuel running 260s. That's insane. That's awesome. And, that's only going to continue to grow the sport. We do have a few other A-Fuels that are potentially going to be coming. Obviously, parts, back orders, everyone's dealing with the issues. So if everything goes right, then we should be seeing them this weekend. So hopefully that class will also be looking really well. But we got a lot of racers that I know I've been doing reservations and we're packed. We're going to have a lot of racers. It's definitely going to be a good race. Super excited. I know we're definitely going to have a lot of spectators that always come out. Have had a lot of spectators reach out just to bring their motorhomes and stay on the property for the weekend just because they know the type of events that we've been putting out as of recently. And I'm just super excited to get the season started here.
Absolutely. And we're going to be coming up here. It's kicking off January 17th through the 19th at Welton, Arizona. Speaking of those spectators, if you guys want to get tickets, looking to spectate, you can get that at thefoat.com. And racers are, you guys could come and going to pay at the gate. Tons of classes, bracket, index, heads up, all coming up at you January 17th through the 19th for the winter shootout here at Dome Valley Raceway.